Hello, everyone, and a very good evening to you all. Welcome to another series, Ask Me Anything session with Professor SaiSatish Vedam. In this session today, our topic is how to get into product roles and become successful. Especially in this session, we will dive deeper into the flavors of product management, new age skills required for a career transition, and tips to achieve excellence as a leader in the product space. Thank you so much for being patient. We will soon begin the session. I would encourage all of you to ask questions, save all of your questions in a notepad, go get a cup of coffee and a notepad and get ready for the session. It's a very open-ended interactive session, so feel free to ask any kind of questions in the product space. Before we get started, I would like to introduce you. For those of you who are new here and are not aware of IPL, I would like to take a minute to introduce you to the Institute of Product Leadership. My name is Kashish. I'll be the host for your day today. I am a part of the IPL team. And at the Institute of Product Leadership, we believe in personalized one-on-one sessions to help you understand more about the product space. The Institute of Product Leadership is Asia's first business school providing accredited degree programs and certification courses in product management, product leadership, data science, design, strategy, and more. The Institute has partnered with 3 universities in India and the University of Houston in the United States. The Institute was founded in 2012, almost 10 years now, with a singular mission of creating 10,000 product leaders in the country. Ever since then, the institution has designed and delivered programs in collaboration with various institutes, universities, and corporates, senior working professionals, to help them make career transitions into the product leadership space. The Institute has built and developed a community of over 3,300 successful alumni leading the product, data, and design teams across the world. And this wouldn't have been possible without our ecosystem partner, CMR University, Bangalore. We are also knowledge partners for 220 organizations worldwide. You can find out more about the Institute of Product Leadership and the programs offered on our website. Please check the chat window for the URL. All right then, so let's proceed with the session. I would like to let you know again, please feel free to ask questions in the Q&A window in the Zoom chat window. Let's get started. I am very excited to hear insights and listen to all of your questions for the day. Before we begin, I would also like to introduce you to our speaker. Professor SaiSatish Vedam is a product leader with extensive hands-on experience in building and bringing disruptive technology products to the market. He has worn many hats during his career, all the way from a programmer, designer, architect, analyst manager, etc., to a chief strategist for global products in large corporations. He was most recently the senior director of product management at Oracle. He is also an executive coach and faculty at the Institute of Product Leadership. Folks, the speaker will now present their insights and then we will open up for questions. I will go ahead and unmute you and you can ask your questions. Do not miss this opportunity to engage with our speakers for some good, intriguing questions that you've always been waiting to get answers to. Without further delay, Professor Sai, please take over and let's get right into the session.
Okay. Well, thank you, Kashish. Good evening, everyone. I hope you all had a wonderful holy celebrations, if you do that. And thanks for joining in this on this day at this time. I'm sure it was a long day. But here is what we'll spend the next 35, 40 minutes on, right? So the session is called Ask Me Anything. So I think we should give preference to that. I'm hoping that many of you have questions about product roles, how to get into product roles, and some of you possibly may already be in the product roles, right? And if so, how do you make that transition faster or acceleration faster in your current roles? So it'll be great if we could get a sense of the audience here so that we can see what aspects we can emphasize on and what probably we could spend less time in this session. So here's a quick poll to all of you. Take a few seconds to answer very quickly so that I know what aspects to spend more time and what probably not. So the first one says, and by the way, this is looks like this is being streamed live on multiple other platforms, including LinkedIn Live as well as YouTube. But for those of you who are on Zoom, do take a moment to answer that. So the first one is, you've been working for less than 5 years, 5 to 10 years, 10 to 15, longer than I care to remember. Very interesting. There's no problem in admitting to that. I often say answer the last question if I get asked this question, but go ahead. Okay, so that shows pretty much 10 to 15 plus years seem to be the highest number of folks in this audience. Let's go to the next question, next poll, if you will. Now, here is an interesting thing about, okay, go ahead, take the poll. I remembered an interesting anecdote about experience, but please go ahead and answer the second one. So are you already in product role? You may think you're already in the product role, which is good. Probably we'll spend some time in understanding what that role entails. But many of you seem to be aspiring to become one. Okay, not very surprising because I meet lots and lots of people and I've been helping and coaching them along the journey to get into those roles. So it's one of the very hot career paths actually in this country. So it looks like the third option is actually important as well, right? Not sure if it is right for me. I'll spend probably 30 seconds to help you understand how to look at this particular role and what responsibilities it entails. And it is not for everyone. Let me also tell you that, right? So go ahead. Okay, good. So I think we have about 71% saying aspiring, 12% or 11% says you're already possibly in that role, and some of you are still thinking whether it is right for you or not. Great. Do you have any more poll question? This is good. This is a good insight to me about who is joined here on a weekday evening. It's not easy. I understand many of you work and some of you are going to offices now, coming back home and joining. This means there is a lot of curiosity, strong intent to understand how to get into these roles. Great. So the third one, your expertise is in this function. Essentially, what is your work experience? Have you been in product development, project or program management, business analysis? Looks like there is a good portion of you, none of the above. Maybe, if some of you can post it in the chat, which function, which role you are in currently, that will be useful as well. Good, but looks like majority of them after that is coming from engineering or product development. Okay, good. And the last one, especially for those of you, and many of you seem to be saying, I'm aspiring to become one. Choose any of these things, right? Why is this exciting to you, or at least sounds exciting to you? And by the way, very interesting choices. High-paying strategic role with impact. Really, nobody is choosing because it's a high-paying. It is actually very high-paying career. Gives 360-degree understanding, all of the above. Good. Okay. Yeah. Super. Okay, thank you. I think that's pretty useful. So here's what we'll do. So I'll bring my perspectives from three aspects, right? And before I jump into that, Kashish did give a little bit of introduction about me, but most of the time I spend these days on three aspects, right? One, helping people transition into product roles, right? From a variety of functional roles like project management, engineering, program management, as we saw, through one-on-one coaching. I'm also a senior faculty for the executive MBA program in product leadership. I'm a senior faculty for product management at not only the IPL and CMRU program, but also IIM Udaipur and ISBR. Prior to that, of course, I spent more than a couple of decades, transition from engineering background into product management, and most recently product leader, managing a portfolio of products for global customers, right? So the perspective that I want to bring into this discussion is from three angles. One is as a practitioner, right? I spent 20 years building very large scale products, of course, technology products. The second one is as a coach, as a guide, as a mentor to a lot of people. And the third one is as a hiring manager. I've been a hiring manager. I've hired 60 plus product managers in my career. And so I will bring a hiring manager perspective to say what a hiring manager is looking for when they are actually hiring a person into a product role. Right now, do feel free to ask any questions. As I said, let's keep this interactive. If you have any questions right away, we can get started with that. But what I've also usually found is when I ask this question right at the beginning, some of you are hesitant, right? There may not be any questions coming in. So what I'll do is I'll spend about 15, 20 minutes time, or maybe 20 minutes to bring in some tips, right? And these tips fall under two categories, which is if you are an aspiring product manager, what are the three things that I have seen from those three perspectives for you to take away? And the next three tips I will bring about essentially if you are an existing product role, right? If you're already in an existing product role, what are those things that you can benefit from? You can accelerate your career faster and further in your organization. So those are the three aspects. But I think looking at what we saw from the poll, maybe I will spend less time on that. How can you accelerate further in your product role from where you are to product leadership? But I will do touch upon it so that it helps you to look at it as a long-term rather than a very short-term approach. So I hope all of you can see me, hear me okay, and the slides. Yeah, can we get a thumbs up somewhere? Hello. Okay, good. So guys, I encourage all of you to turn on your cameras. It's okay, be on mute, but do turn on the cameras. Otherwise, it feels like I'm speaking to a green dot on the computer, right? So let's keep this a little more interactive. I see a few of you. Great. Naveen, thank you for being the first person. There's always the first person who shows up and then everybody does that. It's okay. So just be on mute unless you are talking. Otherwise, all the background noises and sounds will come. Go ahead, guys, turn it on. I'll give another few seconds. Don't worry about your backgrounds. We've all gotten used to it now, right? I always say in my classes, in my sessions, that if your kid walks by, I'll say hello. If your dog walks by, that's fine too. So go ahead and turn it on. Few more. Don't be shy. Great. Praveen, Saumitra, super. By the way, people who turn on the cameras get the attention too. You guys know that? Go on.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because, the mode of interaction is not very optimal, right? I mean, we are looking into camera, we're looking into the laptop screen, and the few people who are visible on the screen are the ones that your eyes naturally get drawn to, because most of the time, 70% of communication is body language, right? More than what you are talking. So it'll be great. Go on, turn it on. I'll give you, we'll get started though. Now, first and foremost thing, product management. And by the way, the topic is getting into product roles, right? And this is an important thing for many people to understand. When I'm talking about product roles, product management is a title, right? Now, there are lots of other product roles which don't have a title of product management. especially if you are a senior professional, 12 to 15 years, looks like many of you are, and you are possibly in some kind of other functions like engineering, product development, project management, all of these things. And if you're working in the context of products, right, and you are looking into next stage of your career, and you are going to be part of the team from different functions making decisions in your own function, but still in the context of products. Those are what I call as product leaders, right? Product leadership doesn't necessarily mean that you come a title with a product management and then senior PM and then director of PM and then people call themselves product leader. Not necessarily true. In fact, the senior director of engineering in your company, the VP of customer success, the head of marketing, the senior director of design, all of them in the context of products, these are all product leaders, right? So think of it in a much broader sense. So let's understand to begin with, when we say product management, what that is, right? There are lots of interesting definitions out there, but here is the one that I naturally go to always, right? Which is, it is basically an art and science of identifying the market opportunities through identifying customer problems, pain points, and needs, and then understanding what opportunity exists if you solve this problem, and then driving the team to develop compelling, competitive, and profitable products, right? Well, you might ask, okay, profitable, should it always be profitable? Well, if it is a not-for-profit business, probably profit is not the main motive, but you still need to sustain, right? You still need to continue. So, which means you really need to generate some revenue stream to keep this going, unless, of course, some large philanthropists are funding you forever, which is usually not the case, right? So the entire discipline of product management is the art and science, right? A combination of these to identifying the right opportunities and driving the team. Now, the emphasis on driving the team is a little bit important because there is a misnomer among many people, especially with very interesting titles like product owner, right? This product owner is a fascinating title. By the way, you don't own anything. Nobody owns anything, right? It's a fundamental responsibility that you have to drive the team to make certain things happen. And what are those certain things? To be able to deliver compelling, competitive, and profitable products. So that is a common understanding that we will go with, at least in this conversation, right, for this discussion. Now, a little bit broader way to think about product role is, again, remember, product role doesn't necessarily have to be with the title of a product manager. I know lots and lots of people who are in engineering, as I said, customer success, marketing, and design. Their titles are different, but if you are part of a team that is working together to make contextual decisions in your own function, you are still a product leader, right? So essentially, all of these people are responsible for driving the company vision or the business's vision and execute and implement on the strategy with innovative and compelling and creative products, right? It's a very broad way to think about for others who are not necessarily in the product management title. Now, is this right role for me? I think many of you said you're still figuring it out, which is very important. I strongly encourage you to spend some time, talk to people who have been in that role, understand what it entails and whether it is actually even good for you, whether you will enjoy it or not, right? In my view, I'm going to take a little bit of a, straightforward viewpoint here because I've spent more than 15 years in product management and in product leadership. And I believe a person should have certain abilities, cultivate certain abilities, because this particular role is full of chaos, right? It's chaos because you're going to be working with pretty much every stakeholder in the company, right? It is not just about the people who are creating the product or developing that product. It's about designing, it's about marketing, it's about sales, partnerships, finance, money, leadership team, customers, pretty much the whole gamut of people, right? And while you're fundamentally responsible for certain things in the product, you are expected to work and influence this gang, right? And that also brings in lots of ambiguity. The most important expectation from a product manager is to be able to make decisions in the face of ambiguity, right? There is never 100% reliable data. there is never 100% clear-cut answer. But you are still expected to make those decisions and influence and convince people around you as to why that decision is made, right? And naturally, this causes lots of anxiety among people, a lot of stress. And I've seen this especially when product managers have to shut down a product, right? Product managers are not just about creating new products, it's also about killing products, right? Because you really have to look at it from a practical business perspective, and you will have to shut it down. And it happened to me, right? When I was in my previous company, we had long conversations about what stage of this life cycle stage of is the product in, what is the growth that is happening in terms of customers, in terms of revenue, what are we spending to continue that? And then a decision was made that we shut it down. And believe me, I spent 12 years of my career building that product with the teams. And it is a very disheartening moment. In fact, I went into a short momentary depression kind of a thing, 2 months, because we felt bad. And there are lots of people who have been working on this. And so there's stress, right? There's stress from a variety of angles. The other thing, what I found interestingly and specifically in Indian context is many of us have grown up and worked in companies with this notion of success that how many people report to me, right? The Shole's dialogue comes to my mind. Kitne aadmi the, right? Many people, in fact, our society attributes success in a way to that. Now, interestingly, this particular role is highly influential role, impactful role, but almost nobody reports to you until you get to a certain stage, right? So it's essentially all the responsibility, but no authority, right? Now, are you okay with that? Are you going to make peace with that? Because even if you have 15 years experience, sometimes if you're not in a director role in many companies, you are still an individual contributor. You play a very key role, but many people don't report, right? So these are the things I want folks to consider, especially about your personality, about your type. Do you have grit and perseverance? Because in large corporations, especially, if you have to get some approvals, get things done, influence people, and make them agree to what you're proposing, it's going to be time consuming, lots of meetings and approvals and rejections and all of that. So are you going to basically give up pretty quickly and get disappointed? Or are you the person who will develop that grit and perseverance, right? It's going to be super important. Now, interesting thing is, if you actually look at most of these attributes or characteristics or traits, if you will, they are no different than an entrepreneur, right? An entrepreneur needs pretty much all of these things plus extra. And that is the reason why product management role is called intrapreneurship, which is you're doing everything the entrepreneur is doing, but inside the context of a company. Somebody else is taking that risk, not necessarily you individually, whereas in entrepreneurship, it's the opposite, right? So hence it's from a skill set, from a mindset, all of that is very similar. So this is why I'm sure you've heard of this particular quote, right? With the great power comes great responsibility. Whereas for a product manager, it's funny when a product works well and it succeeds in the market, pretty much everybody will credit the entire team, right? Everybody who made it happen. But if it fails, it's always the product manager's fault, right? Now, the point I'm bringing it is be open, be introspective, be realistic about whether this is right for you or not. And this is absolutely a high impact role, right? You can literally make decisions that will make or break sometimes products and businesses. And hence, and of course, it's also a high paying role and high fast growth path. So there is all good reasons to do it, but these are also some things that you need to consider. Now, lastly, it's not that you need to have all of these things inherently, right? You can absolutely develop this in a very structured way, right? Of course, it requires you to put that extra effort, work with different types of people, understand your gaps today and see what you can do, talk to some mentors and coaches and see how you're progressing. All of that is possible because I've seen hundreds of people transition from variety of roles into product management, right? So don't, if you're still aspiring, that is great, and it is absolutely possible. So 3 key responsibilities, right, of any product person in the product role. First one is, most of the people only talk about building the product right, which means, you have to build it in a creative way and simple to use and all of that adjectives that you hear, in an agile way, incremental, iterative, all these words that you hear. But the most important part, before you even build the product right, is to make a decision on building the right product, right? There's a very famous quote among product people, which is, if you're in a bad market, if you have a great idea, or if you have an awesome product, the market always wins. Right? Let me repeat that. If you are in a bad market, but you have a great idea or an awesome product, the market always wins. So it's important to make a key strategic decision whether it is worth solving that problem before you jump and start building to solve something. Right? So this is a key point that many people, even in product management roles, miss. The other aspect, responsibility for product people, people in product roles, is to champion internal stakeholders, right? So you want to make them your ally. You want to bring them to your side, not through, mostly through, persuasion, story, data, and evidence, right? And this is required not just from people with title of product manager, right? If you are getting into senior roles, this is going to be super critical. You want the sales on your side. You want the marketing person, all the influencers in all these functions, right? So, which means you are going beyond your product development responsibilities, right? So executive buy-in is going to be very critical. And almost all the times, you are making some case or the other to the people who are going to either approve, either they are sponsors, they are investors, they are customers, or whoever it is. You're going to help them understand why this is right for them, whether we should do it or not do it, right? As I said, often we talk about business case, business plans, and everything for initiatives, new product ideas, new markets, or anything. But there is also a strong reason why this is important as to what products to kill, what to shut down, what not to serve, and all of those, right? So at a macro level, these are the 3 key responsibilities for somebody in product role. So let me jump into a few tips, right? Especially for people who are aspiring into getting into product roles. Now, this is one of the best analogies that I can think of when we say a product manager, right? I'm sure many of you have seen an orchestra, Western orchestra on TV or video or somewhere. You would have seen a whole bunch of musicians playing, right? There are violinists, there are cellists, there are pianists, there are trumpets, all of these folks. Now, these are the experts. They are the experts in their area, right? And you've seen one person with this stick in hand, waving it up and down and to create the harmonious orchestra. Now, analogously, this person is a product manager, which means a PM is an orchestrator, not a CEO, not an owner, not anything, right? In fact, sometimes I call product managers as the janitors of the product, right? No disrespect, but often you're the ones who's figuring out what to clean up, right? So this is essentially, if there is one thing that I want you to take away, is this analogy, right? Now, the reason why it's interesting and important is this conductor of the orchestra actually knows how to play violin, how to play piano, how to play these music instruments, but is not an expert in any of those. The experts are the ones that are playing them. So now take it to the work context, take it into the product context. You have engineers who are experts in solving the problem. You have designers, you have marketeers, you have salespeople, you have partnerships, all of those folks who are experts in that area. But as an orchestrator of the productizing process, you are expected to have these skills. Not an expert, but you're expected to know how this works so that you can have those meaningful conversations using the right vocabulary and terminology and understand from their perspective. Right? When you're having a conversation with a salesperson on some kind of a deal on an opportunity for your product with a customer, if you're not using that right vocabulary, hey, what stage of the sales pipeline is this in? Right? What is the ARR going to be for this? If we don't get this, what is the impact? So these are conversations that becomes super important as you get into this role, which is you're definitely going to work with cross-functional team members. And hence, this is not about expertise in one area, but this is about building that cross-functional understanding and skills. If you're sitting and having a conversation with a designer, if you're not speaking that language and that vocabulary to them, they are going to dismiss you pretty quickly, right? You're not an expert in design, but you at least know what is information architecture, interaction design, or Gestalt's 5 principles, or whatever those things are, right? So building cross-functional. Now, in this cross-functional, while there are many, many things, I want to bring up a few contexts. And this is critical for anyone in the product role. Your job is not as an expert in engineering. For example, some of you, and I saw in the poll, many of you come from engineering, right? And by the way, I've been an engineer. I worked in some incredible life-changing projects, including the team that built Java 5, right? And when you transition from that role into a product role, the natural instinct is that, hey, I know how to do this. I'm an engineer, so I can help the engineering team to say, hey, why does it take 4 weeks to do it? We could do it in 2 weeks. I will show you how. Very bad idea, right? Because now you are not the person who's doing that. You are the one who needs to bring in customer context, which is, who are our customers? What are they trying to solve? What are they trying to accomplish in that context? What are the pain points and the problems that they have? And hence bringing that context and helping people understand whatever we are doing needs to address that. The second context is the business context, right? Is it worth solving this problem from a business perspective? Right? What kind of business models are we going to adopt when we take this to market? These are the strategic decisions that are expected from people in product roles. Innovation context is pretty clear to a lot of people who come from engineering, which is, let's create a product or features or anything in a better way, faster, cheaper, whatever it is, than the other alternatives that exist, right? So bringing in that context is important. Market context. These are the groups of customers, but how big is that groups of customers? How big are these customer segments, as we call them? What is the opportunity here? Can we quantify that? Because business is going to spend time, energy, money, all of that in creating this product. Is it even worth doing? Yeah, so that's a critical questions that you will need to answer, but you don't have all the answers. So you will need to have certain competencies and skills to do this and work with the cross-functional teams, right? So I'll skip the process context and get into the leadership later part. Tip number 2, super critical for aspiring PMs. Not only that, but even if you're already in that role and getting into next level of strategic decision-making roles, right? Or product leadership roles. Often, many people that I see, they actually spend a lot of time decorating that resume, right? With lots of 3-letter acronyms, 4-letter acronyms, and this keyword and that keyword and all of that. Now, obviously, there is a reason why many people spend time on that. That's because the way hiring is done. Unfortunately, the way hiring is done is same as most of the hiring that happens for other roles, which is, here is the JD, and here is one button that says easy apply, so that you can just click that and your resume gets uploaded. And by the way, what is happening? 400 other people are also applying for the same role. And on the other side, nobody has the time, patience, or energy to look through all the 400 resumes. So they're actually going to filter your resume based on some keywords. Now, obviously, people who are applying to the jobs also know that its keywords are important. So you're stuffing your resume with more keywords. And do you think you're the only person who's stuffing the keywords? No, all the 400 people are stuffing. So this is a never-ending game, right? So the better way, and especially if you want to transition from your current role into product role, the way to do this is not through a declarative statement like resume, but demonstration of skills, right? You will need to be able to demonstrate, showcase to people that you not only know how to do this, but you have some evidence to show. And that is critical. Now, how to get there, how to do that is a separate thing. I'll probably touch upon it during Q&A. But keep this in mind. Don't spend too much time on decorating that resume. Right? You have what you have, which is fine. Spend more time now on building a portfolio of demonstrable assets. A lot of designers know this, right? Designers naturally build portfolios, they showcase it because most of the people think it's visual. And you can see and evaluate that person's abilities and skills through that. Why not in products? Thousands of people do this on products. I know lots of alumni who go through programs in IPL. This is mandatory, right? You are expected to build a portfolio, showcase this before even somebody sees your resume. I'm not saying resume is not important. Well, I still say that in a controversial way, which is resumes are dead, right? Spend more time on building a portfolio of demonstrable assets. Tip number 3, many of you know this intuitively, and for some people, it is not easy to build, right? Who you know is more important than what you know sometimes, which means you need, and many of you would have experienced this. A lot of career transitions, promotions inside the company do happen because somebody knows you, somebody vouches for you, somebody recommends you and refers you, and that comes some credibility, right? So it's not just enough if you spend a lot of your time in just building skills and portfolio, but ability to build a strong network, right? And when I say this, a lot of times people think that it is going to LinkedIn and connecting with them, right? That's probably the worst form of networking in my view. Now you do that, but give some context about it and offer some help. Otherwise, there is, completely, who is this person? Why is this person connecting to me? 3 days later, I won't even remember this person, right? So there are certain ways of doing that. And of course, you need access to that group of people who actually can, guide you and help you to get to these things. And it absolutely happens, right? So these are the 3 tips, especially, there are many, by the way, but I picked 3 in the interest of time. About 30 seconds on from a hiring manager perspective. Every hiring manager, and it's not just me who do this regularly, but many people that I know, and by the way, this is changing for product hiring, which is now you're evaluating the person on 3 dials. Number 1, domain skills. Number 2, functional skills. Number 3, leadership skills. Right? Domain skills, cannot be taught. You really have to spend time in that domain to understand the landscape, the trends, and the competition and all of that. But of course, you can spend some time to know what the landscape looks like. You may not be an expert in that, right? So if you are a person who actually, let's say, comes from security background, right? Now, a company like McAfee is looking at you and saying, I'm hiring a product manager for this particular role. This person already has this cybersecurity domain understanding. So the dial already shows 8 or 9 on 10. Right? But then what about the functional skills? Which means functional skills typically are, if you're in engineering role, development skills, project management, program management, product management, these are all functional skills. Now, if you don't have the product management skills, but you demonstrate and convince the other person that you actually can do it if given an opportunity, the dial will move. There is absolutely no doubt about it, right? And the third one, I think for this particular roles is extremely important because of the nature of the role that we described, right? Your job, fundamentally your time and energy goes in working with different stakeholders, telling a compelling story, influencing them, negotiating a lot of things. So these are all some interesting important leadership things. Now, the hiring manager is not looking at one or the other. It's a combination. So it's okay if you don't have domain skills and you want to move into that domain. However, you need to have very high functional and leadership. But if you don't have functional skills like product management prior experience, if you're able to demonstrate very high on the other 2, great. Right? So that's the way to think about it rather than individual specific areas to this. Okay, so Quickly, 3 things for people who are already in product roles but are looking to become more successful, grow faster in your career. Build some influence. Influence building is number one in the organization. And often this is done by building credibility, right? And the credibility doesn't just come from your own knowledge, your own abilities. It comes from representing your customers, because you as a product leader or a product manager are the ambassador of the market in your company. You are representing your customer in your organization, right? And if you bring that voice, if you bring that data, if you bring that conviction, and that builds a lot of credibility, and hence you can influence a lot of people. This is another tip from my own personal journey and experience. And of course, I worked in a very large enterprise company, and I think it applies to many, many organizations, is make friends with sales. This is super critical, because sales are often closest to the customers, and they are the ones who will bring intelligence about your customers, what they are trying to solve, their initiatives, their relationships. And when you now bring that back into the rest of the organization, and the salesperson vouches saying that absolutely, we have seen this from the field. So what Soumitra is saying is absolutely true. Soumitra, I'm just picking on you because I can see that, right? So this is another practical tip from the trenches, if you will. The other one is often people think that there is a lot of politics that to navigate with. Believe me, every organization has it. There is no organization on the planet that I know which doesn't have this. So accept this and try and find ways to navigate that, right? That's why it's called organizationally savvy as opposed to political. Right? Because your job is to manage multiple stakeholders, to convince multiple stakeholders, both inside and outside. So mastering this art, it requires practice, but if you're not trying it, where is the practice going to come from, right? Now, these are some of the tips that, for building the influence. The second one is experience building. While you may have had the initial set of product competencies and skills that got you into that role, the next level of things are very different. I'm sure many of you have heard that quote, which is what got you here will not get you there, right? So what are those things that would be required for you to get there? But how do you build that experience? Work with people, other PMs, other product leaders in the organizations, shadow them, right? And it's not difficult as you think. I used to think it's pretty complicated or difficult. Why would anybody agree to this? Why would anybody accept this? That is not at all true. It's just that we haven't asked. If you just ask and see what happens, right? Volunteer for things that you did not get the opportunity to do and want to do it so that you now know how to do that, right? You show up your hand. There are lots of people who will happily say, Ashish, please come on, help me out on this, right? Just raise that hand. And of course, we all have blind spots, right? When we are doing this, all of us have it at whatever stage in your career, how many hours you spend. So somebody from outside need to look at that and say, hey, you know what, Naveen, maybe you're missing this particular aspect of it. There's a blind spot here. And that person is a coach. That person is a mentor, right? Find these mentors. It's not easy. Believe me, it's not easy to find them in India that easily. I've had the fortune of having some of the best mentors in my career who shaped my career trajectory. And that's the reason why me and many of us at IPL spend a lot of time helping, mentoring, and coaching, right? But you find those people who can guide you through that path, right? So that's experience building. The last one is don't wait for the opportunity to come before you build the skills, right? I call this as building the inventory of skills and deployment of skills, right? Most of us wait for an opportunity to deploy the skills and we realize, oh, I don't have it. Quickly, I need to go do and learn something and then come back. Sometimes that opportunity may not exist. It's gone. And it happened to me thrice in my career, right? I'll just give you a simple example. When I was a director in this company, one day I get an email from my boss saying that, Sai, we got the checkbook, so let's go and acquire some company, right? And here is what I want you to do. I want you to put together one slide about potential targets to acquire and why. One slide, that's it, because the entire business unit had, I think, about 8 or 9 products. Each of the product is supposed to bring that, which means 8 to 10 slides. And the people, the M&A organization who's going to look at it don't have patience. 10 slides, 1 slide per product. So I spent more than 2 weeks to actually get that information. As a product person, I was thinking, here is a market, here are our gaps, these are the companies, potential competitors, and if we acquire them, we will fill these gaps and all of that, right? It's a typical product-centric view. Once I sent that, I didn't hear back from anyone. I didn't hear back from my boss and his boss and M&A, nothing. So I didn't know what was going on. When I asked upwards, they said, even I don't know. And I was kind of, taken aback. Why? There should be some communication. Okay, forget it. Second time it happened, right? Another couple of months later, same request, this time with even more specific instructions saying, you know what? We have to shake up the industry. This acquisition, if we do, the entire industry has to wake up and say, wow, look at what this company has done. That is a guideline, by the way. Interesting, no? I mean, the guideline that you get is, whatever we're going to acquire should just shake up the industry. So, okay, I went through the same exercise and same outcome, which is it went up, silence. Now I got frustrated, right? So I went and, talked to my mentor and he connected me to another people and like that. And finally, what I learned is a simple feedback to me. I said, Sai, you are taking a product-centric view, but the people who are actually making the decision about this don't care about the product. They care about the business. So you're missing the financial aspects in this. You talk about PE ratios, you talk about ARRs, you talk about MRRs, whatever that is. So I had no idea what these were. So then I had to run and get myself upskilled. I took some short-term program, learned how to interpret companies' balance sheets and this and that, hoping that that opportunity would come again. And interestingly, third time that opportunity came. Now this time, my slide, 90% of this was on the business, 10% was on product, and it went upwards. And the outcome was, we are not going to go ahead with that acquisition. But thank you for your slide. It helped us understand better. That feedback was not there before, right? The reason why I'm bringing that example is, what if that opportunity did not come up again? So sometimes thinking about building an inventory so that you are ready to deploy when the opportunity comes up is a better way. Right? So that's my quick tip on this. Now, there are many, many competencies and skills in products, depending on which level you are in. The light blue one is the one where most of the early stage product managers, product owners spend time in, which is on the product planning part of it. Right? You will see a lot of it is about requirements definition, requirements management, acceptance criteria, user stories, product roadmap, persona, blah, blah, all of that stuff. And now if you look at the darker shades of the blue, it moves a little bit more strategic. And the red part is all outbound product management. The blue part is inbound product management. The red part is outbound. Outbound is a lot more interlock and collaboration with product marketing folks. So some of the leadership skills that I talked about, which I already mentioned, but there are lots and lots of leadership skills. But for product roles, I believe these are the super critical ones that one need to develop, right? And all of these things can be developed, by the way. It just requires a methodical approach, a structured way of doing it, and practice it to get that feedback and get that better. Okay, so with that, I'll pause and see if you guys have any questions.
Folks, feel free to raise your hand or drop your question in the chat box.
Go on, don't be shy.
Yeah. Hi, Naveen this side again.
Hey, Naveen.
I'm a platform owner for one of the product. well-known product only.
Mhm.
When you talk about that last slide, which is talking about planning phase and insights, this one, right? And I
Yeah.
was very connected with the last point of where it's the third opportunity came where you're able to knock it out. This is something which is missing out by as an individual by me. I
Yeah.
always talk about this is a product benefit is giving out. So how should we focus towards that one when you are talking with VP and product high level main leadership team, right?
Yeah.
Uh, Natural tendency or like the blind spot, right? I always talk about this is the product thing, this is the richness, is the product plus and minus only, but not about business context.
Yeah.
Any what to be done,
Yeah.
and another thing, continuation to this one, right? I'm a platform owner that naturally tendency that this is the product can do wonders if we incorporate this exercise, these additional features, so it will rock it in enterprise industry because
Mhm.
this is lacking in that. So that is also another question come, right? So that has
Yeah.
made me to come into the webinar as well as, right.
Yeah.
Being in the platform, there are a lot of gaps are there. If you can fill it, it will be better. But how
Yeah.
should we convey to the product team?
Yeah.
As of now, I'm a platform owner, but I'm not a product owner. How should
Yeah.
we communicate it? How should we track it up? This thing. Two questions. Yeah.
Okay, good. So let me take the second one first. I think that's more relevant to
Relevant. Yeah.
many of them as well. So often there is going to be this healthy tension between the product team, development team versus the product team and the senior leadership team, right? Because you believe that you will get more customers or you will make the existing customers happy if you add some features into the current product, right? Now, this is, by the way, a feature-driven thinking, which is you're always thinking in terms of some solution that will make the product more compelling for your customers without even having evidence of whether the problem exists or not. You believe the problem exists based on your interactions with the customers. But
Yes.
remember, the rest of the people are not interacting with them. So before you try and convince them about these features, it is often important to bring some evidence from either directly from the customer side or indirectly through your customer support, through your sales teams, through your account teams, whoever is coming back and telling you that your platform lacks these things, right? Now, of course, there is always going to be gaps, which means now you will have to convince the teams of which of these gaps is more important. Because remember, the engineering team is also telling you, Naveen, if we don't upgrade this to the next level of database, we can't scale. So we are going to prioritize that, right? Now, it's a legitimate request. But the question that you need to ask and help them understand is, does our customer care whether you are using 10.3 or 11 version? They probably don't, which means you will have to articulate the benefits of using that to the customer and say, is this the right thing for them? So it is not a straightforward thing. I think the mistake a lot of product managers do is, I have done my homework, I have got all the data, and based on that, these are the things that we should do. Now, engineering team, come back and tell me when we will do it. Right? That's not the right approach, because remember, there are people in the engineering team who are experts of solving that problem. So if you are able to take additional effort in showing that evidence, I acknowledge that this next level of database is important, but here is what is happening from a customer side. And this is the downside, and this is the consequence, not just for the customer, but for the business. That ability is important. Yeah? Good. Okay. Sorry. What was the first one? Maybe I'll quickly take that. Yeah.
I'll pass on to others and I'll be back.
Okay, great. Yeah. Thank you. Let's see Father Sabit.
I have a question. Can I go?
Yeah, Praveen, go ahead.
Sure. So my question really is, how do we differentiate between application engineering and product engineering? Is there really a difference in the new age times? So
application
what's
engineering and product. Sorry, say that again.
Product.
Application engineering and
product engineering.
Product engineering. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
not
okay.
product management, right? Product engineering.
Product engineering. Yeah.
Okay.
So is there a difference, first of all?
Yeah. It's a simple question to ask on this context, Praveen, is, are we engineering something to solve a problem of one client, or maybe one or two clients or customers, or are we solving this for the market?
Yeah.
Right? If the answer to that is we are actually solving to the market is nothing but a collection of customer segments. A customer segment is nothing but a collection of personas, right? Which means you are solving not for one, two, but a whole group of people. If the answer to that question is we are actually engineering something to address the problems or the pain points or the needs of a market, then there is no difference. It's just a tautology, it's just a terminology.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. All right. So, and one more, can I ask a follow-up question, or should I be? I'll come back.
Let's see if others have. Yeah.
Sure.
Professor, we have two questions from LinkedIn, if we can quickly take that.
Yeah, please, can you ask that? Let me see.
Yeah. Garima Singh asks, is it possible to get into a product role after 17 years in the industry as a technical delivery lead?
Now, so this is why I started my discussion with defining what we mean by product role, right? If your question is, can I become a product manager with a title of a product manager, whether it is PM, senior PM, whatever it is, I would be very cautious, because remember, you possibly are, number one, overqualified from variety of angles. You're probably even overpaid right now, and hence, why would I take that bet on you? But if you're looking at getting into a product role, which I described in working with other cross-functional leaders, bringing your expertise in some functional aspect, which is whether you're in engineering, technical delivery, as you said. But if all of that is happening in the context of products, then you're a product leader. So I would say look at product leadership rather than product management. Now, the key example I keep giving is, in your company, the vice president of engineering, the vice president of solutions engineering, the vice president of customer success, these are all product leaders, because they are working with their peers in product management, in design, in marketing, to make decisions on the strategy, on the business, but now you're implementing those in your realm. If you are in engineering, you're making those decisions in engineering. If you're in marketing, you're making those in the marketing part. So that, the way to think about it is product leadership. So the simple answer is, if you're aiming for title of a PM, I would be very cautious about that, because for the reasons that I mentioned.
Second question that we have on LinkedIn is by Mr. Gautam Gaikwad. He wants to know if there is any difference between product owner and a product manager.
Oh, huge difference, right? Massive difference. But before we jump into that, let me kind of give a little perspective on how this product owner thing came about, right? Product owner, of course, started with a different product development methodology, right? Many of you know this, Agile, right? And about 14 years ago, Agile Manifesto was written, and then all these terminologies came up, roles and responsibilities came up, Scrum Master and this, and product owner and all of that. Now, if you actually look at the responsibilities, first thing is to acknowledge different companies use the product owner as a title differently. Many companies which had the role of business analysts, BA, are now called product owners in many companies, right? Because, attaching product to this becomes nice, attractive opportunity, attractive role, attractive title, right? So that's number one, which means that most of what they're doing is still business analysts. It's just the title is different. Whereas on the other side that I've seen is a lot of companies don't have product manager as a title, but have product owner. And I often seen this as a pattern. European non-technology companies, especially in manufacturing, in logistics, in supply chain, in healthcare, many of them have the product owner actually is a very senior, right? But for all of you to think about what is the difference, I showed you that picture, that flywheel, right? The light blue, the dark blue, and the red one. Product owner in many companies is that light blue thing, which is, in a simple way, a product owner is an orchestrator of the product planning process, which means most of the time you're spending in taking the backlog that is already prioritized by somebody, and that somebody is a product manager. And now you're picking that up and defining it clearly, working with your Scrum team, making sure everybody understands it, the designs come in, and then they implement all of that, right? So you're the orchestrator of the product planning process, whereas a product manager is the orchestrator of the productizing process, which means starting from uncovering the market needs, profiling your customers, defining the customer segments, making key decisions to say, is this problem worth solving? And then jumping into coming into that development part of it. So there's a huge difference realistically, but many companies kind of give these titles arbitrarily and confuse the heck out of people. So hopefully that answers the question. Yeah, okay.
Folks who've asked questions in the chat box, if you wish to unmute and ask.
Yeah, let's take a couple.
All right. The first question is from Rekha. She wants to know
If Rekha is here, Rekha, why don't you ask that? Don't be shy.
We have 3 questions. Anybody who would like to unmute and go ahead and ask the questions
Yeah,
over voice, please do.
that's a better way to hear
By the way, Senthil here.
your own words, coming out with your own thing rather than Kashish reading the question.
Yeah, by the way, this is Senthil here.
Hey, Senthil, go ahead.
I just joined this product management course in the December month to give you just background about it. And my curious question is, we have 3 strategy: corporate strategy, business strategy, and product strategy. Where we play, how we play, and what we deliver.
What do we do to win?
Yes. So who is the decision maker to set this decision?
Excellent question. Brilliant question. And now I don't want to get into too much of the strategy part, but to answer your question, often corporate strategy is set by the board, the CEO. These are the people who set the corporate strategy, right? Remember, corporate strategy is all about choosing the playground on which we are going to play, right? There are many playgrounds to play, but we are making a choice to play in this particular playground. That is a decision by CEO usually and the board. Yes, and the board. Next level is the business strategy. Now, business strategy is about how are we going to compete to win in that chosen playground, because there are other players. Remember, there is already other players playing in the playground. Now, how are we going to compete to win in the chosen playground? There are a lot. We have already chosen. The corporate has already chosen this playground. Now, who sets this direction? Typically, this is the business unit heads, right? These are the heads of that particular business that they set. Now, these strategies could include acquisitions, organic, inorganic, market penetration, market expansion, portfolio expansion. A lot of these are strategies. The third one, which is product strategy, basically, yeah, product strategy, which essentially talks about what are we going to create to help us compete in the playground that we have chosen, right? It's good. You have to connect the dots. You have to align with that strategy. So from a product strategy perspective, we are only thinking about products, right? So there is a strategy is basically a guardrail, right? It's like a guardrail that is provided to you so that you don't go off in different directions. And this is usually set by head of products, whether it is vice president, senior VP, CPO, or depending on the type of company, this is what it is.
So normally the business head would be driving this blue ocean workshop to understand, to get the input for this.
Right. That is right. That's right. Yeah. Good. Okay. Last question.
Hey, can I go next?
Okay. Is that Rekha? No.
No, I'm Tanaya. So actually, I just wanted to ask, is it possible for me to get into product management? Because I have 1 year experience of development. I'm a software developer. So is it possible
Yeah.
for me to get into product management?
Well, there is an interesting path that India pioneered, by the way, for the world, for helping young professionals to move into product management. And that title is called APMs. Have you heard of this? Associate
Associate
Product
product
Manager.
managers.
This
Yes.
is, by the way, solely Indian creation. And now the world has embraced it, right? Why did Indian companies do this? Because a lot of people who are in technical roles, engineering roles, but working in the products are fascinated about product management.
Yeah.
And now how do we provide a career path for them, right? Because typically, if you want to get into product management, you need, the three things that we talked about: the domain skills, the leadership skills, and the functional skills. But presumably, you don't have any right now with 1 year, 2 years.
Yeah.
So how do we help that? So yes, it is possible. In fact, many companies also create APM career paths, right? And in that light blue thing that I showed, which is a product planning, there are 1 or 2 competencies and skills that are most important for APMs. But it is absolutely possible. In fact, I know a lot of people, even with 1 year, 1.5 years experience, who get into APM. And by the way, this usually, I've seen it happen more in smaller companies rather than large multinational companies.
Mhm. So like, what should I do? What should be my next step to get into this?
Well, first of all, remember what we started with: is this right for you? Right? Ask that question. And then if it is right, what gaps do I have today to get into that role? What is needed in that particular thing? And then you identify those competencies and skills, and not just go and watch some bunch of videos and read some blogs, because that will mess up a lot of things. Take a very structured way of learning those skills. And by the way, learning is not the same as having the skill to do it. This is important. Learning is not the same as having the skill to do it. So which means you have to have practice. You have to work hands-on. And if your learning journey can provide you with that opportunity, nothing like it. Yeah.
Okay.
Good. Okay. All right. I think I have another meeting to jump into, Kashish. I hope, if there are any questions, ask in the LinkedIn. Hopefully I can, spend some time to answer that. But thank you, everyone, and good night, and take care.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so
Bye.
much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Professor, for that wonderfully interactive session. I'm sure all of the attendees here have some really great points jotted down in their notebooks to refer to.
I hope their 1 hour of holy day, I'm sure there's a nice dinner plan. All of that is worth it. At least I know there is a nice dinner plan for me, so I'm going to get to that. Take care. Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much, Professor Sai. Before we all leave the session, I would like to take a minute and appreciate all of the attendees we have for the day. Thank you so much for joining in the session, despite it being a public holiday. I know a lot of you would have a lot of questions. And if you have anything that you would still need answers to, or you need a little bit of guidance, go ahead and scan this QR code. You can talk to one of our counselors and get in touch with one of the experts who can help you. In the view of time constraints, I understand a lot of questions went unanswered, but you can go ahead, scan the QR code. I'll give you a minute to do that, and you can drop in your questions and connect with us on book an appointment with our counselor. We'll also be sharing it in the chat box for your reference. Thank you so much, folks, for joining in. This was a wonderful session. Until next time.